In this video, I'm gonna talk about Moonstone Island. Imagine if Pokemon, Stardew Valley, The Legend of Zelda, and Magic the Gathering got together and had a big old orgy. 9 months later, the baby is born, and nobody can tell who the parents are. Moonstone Island is that baby. The story is as follows. You're an alchemist on a flying broom, and it's your family's coming-of-age ritual that you have to leave home and spend a year somewhere else to hone your skills and see the world. Which means that Kiki's delivery service is another potential parent of the baby in question. The mystery thickens. The Pokemon part has you meeting, fighting, and eventually taming a registry of little monsters that you can add into your own roster to fight for you. You have to take care of them, feed them, decide on which way to level them up, and figure out how to synergize their abilities so that you have a well-balanced party. The basic maintenance you can automate out of your way pretty early on. The Stardew Valley part has you planting crops and watering them to extract the bounty of the land, and this will get you to build an inventory of useful items that you can feed to yourself or your little monsters, or sell away to make some pocket money or even a main source of income. As is tradition, you have a village of people who can be interacted with and eventually romanced. The Zelda part has you exploring dungeons and solving a few simple puzzles now and then until you culminate to the dungeon boss and then retrieve a bounty of treasure and some upgrades to your abilities. The Magic the Gathering part has you building a deck of cards that will be used to do all the fighting for you. Part of the maintenance here is to add new cards, upgrade the ones you already have, and remove the ones you're not interested in, so as to increase the chance you will draw a hand that is useful to you. Everything I said so far is technically the truth. Now, let me say everything again, only in Dark World mode. The Pokemon part has you fighting monsters with differences limited to their sprite and their unique special ability, with most of the special abilities having a minor effect on your experience at best, and a very few abilities that are capable of breaking the game in your favor. The Stardew Valley part makes all the crops of the previous season obsolete by offering a new stack of crops that are straight upgrades. Rinse and repeat the process up until the season of winter, in which you'll grow the best and most powerful crops that you can sell for the highest price or feed to your little monsters to give them the best buffs. The Zelda part gives you as many as 30 dungeons to explore, and most of the dungeon design is around making you wonder where the boss room happens to be. A handful of treasure chests are scattered around, and the puzzles are generally limited to pressing 3 buttons in the right sequence. The Magic the Gathering part can be largely defeated by finding a Psychic-type monster, because their deck has cards that make you draw more cards, and cards that get you to play more cards per turn. So if you get your stuff laid out right, which is not too difficult, you can break the game in your favor by nuking the entirety of your opposition in your opening turn. Everything I said so far is technically the truth as well. Now, let me say everything one more time, with nuance. The Pokemon part, you got your monsters divided into elemental categories, and every monster in one category is the same as each other save for their unique ability, which may or may not be useful to your purposes. The Pokemon part ties into the Magic the Gathering part because the deck of cards is not supplied by you, but by the monsters. So when you form your party, you actually put 3 decks together into one. The Stardew Valley part ties into the Pokemon part by way of the crops you make granting temporary stat boosts. And if you think you don't need these, let me point out that gaining a level gives your monster 1 attribute point to assign. A crop can buff an attribute by as many as 6 points. You can feed multiple crops to your monsters each day in order to buff multiple stats at the same time. In the spring season alone, you can make it so your party of monsters is functionally 11 levels higher than it really is. Get all the way to winter and the number increases to a staggering 22. In practice, it means that in the endgame, you can boost your party's apparent level by 1/3. The Zelda part looks obviously handmade, because I cannot see a way for a software to procedurally generate them with the level of purpose that they exhibit. Plus, they showcase the occasional quirks where it was obvious that a developer somewhere wanted to subvert expectations by, say, putting the boss room on the left and 20 useless rooms on the right, or making you go through a straight gauntlet of 14 battles before you can reach the boss room. Defeating the boss and completing the dungeon upgrades your stamina meter and allows you to do more things in a day before you get tired, thereby tying the Zelda part into the Stardew Valley part by that one flimsy little thread alone. And the Magic the Gathering part ties into the Pokemon part for reasons explained 2 paragraphs ago. I cannot deny that there is a trait in the combination of all the elements put together. It's a good idea. In fact, it's a great idea. I've lost interest in JRPGs a long time ago because I can no longer stand the turn-based mechanic. But playing cards? Assembling a deck in a way that is less intimidating than the absolute rabbit holes of Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh? Okay, yeah, I can get my feet wet into the shallow end. Nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, I played Stardew Valley. Completely. I'm simultaneously experiencing the satisfaction of something unfamiliar going easy on me, and the disappointment of something familiar being a little too shallow for my preference. Somebody who has never played any of the reference games could use Moonstone Island as a stepping stone to figure out what they really want. But we're in indie territory here. If you're watching this video, my brother in Christ, you're a gamer. You're not going from Moonstone Island to all the other ones. You're coming from the other ones and witnessing what happens when they all love each other very, very much until they produce a bastard child. Inspirational products are always a mixed bag. They are condemned to be derivatives of something that is known and appreciated, and by their nature they can never hope to live up to surpass the masters they've chosen. They have to live in the shadow of a greater something else, and they ride the coattails almost like an insurance policy. By grabbing onto something more well-known, they create a point of reference. They define themselves not by their own merit, but by how close they can get to the merit of something else. Granted, I was expecting a lot worse. I was expecting something shallow with a lot of cute stuff and not much substance to back it up. And instead I found something that can hold its own and have some merits it can tie to its name. It'll never go down in history as a blockbuster because it rides on the shoulders of other giants, but it manages to do its thing with enough competence that sometimes it feels like the pupil isn't as mediocre as we might have expected after all. In short, this game is Joe Biden.